All right, good evening, everybody. I am Mike Parker, the tour director with the Peggy Kirk Bell Tour, and tonight our webinar is going to be covering understanding the PKB's Priority Based Entry system, as well as learning about maximizing your schedule, understanding the junior golf landscape, and along those lines. As we're doing the webinar, if you do have any questions, there is a chat function with the webinar program, so feel free to throw in a chat at any point if you have a question about the topic that's being covered. I can either answer it then, or we're going to have a question and answer period at the end, so you can answer any things that aren't answered. So feel free to use that as we move along, and we'll get started. So again, tonight we're going to cover the PKB Priority Entry System, why it exists, how it works, explain the process, waitlisting, all those things. So you'll have a better understanding for those priority events, what's happening and how to prepare for those events in your planning. And then we'll get into the schedule. So we'll look at how the U.S. tournament landscape looks for girls, understanding the progressions that exist within these different opportunities, and then a little bit deeper dive on how you navigate the Peggy Kirk Bell schedule, just so you kind of understand how our system works as well. And like I mentioned, we'll have a question and answer forum there at the end of this webinar. A little bit about myself. I co-founded the Peggy Kirk Bell Tour with Robert Linville back in 2007. I've been the tournament director since day one. I serve as the executive director of the Girls Golf of America Foundation. We are a 501c3 foundation that runs this tour. So it's a nonprofit entity that oversees the Peggy Kirk Bell operations. I serve as an expert committee member with the LPGA USGA Girls Golf Program, trying to assist girls golf programs across the country to help grow girls golf at a grassroots level. Like I mentioned, I've been doing this now 24 years, been directing tournaments for most of that, and our Peggy Kirk Bell tours for the last 19 years. Fun fact about me, I was actually a collegiate baseball player. So baseball was my first love. I did play high school golf, but baseball was always the thing that I loved as a kid, and but I've enjoyed staying in sports for my career. So, like I mentioned, the tour was founded back in 2007. It was a local initiative of a nonprofit foundation here in North Carolina, and has continued to grow out. In 2020, our board voted to change our name to Girls Golf of America to better reflect the priority we had put into girls golf, in particular the Peggy Kirk Bell Tour. And our mission has not changed. This is the mission statement we had when we started, which was about creating a girls-only opportunity that would help increase participation and interest in girls golf, have a venue for aspiring collegiate players to be able to develop and compete at yardage-appropriate events and be recognized for their accomplishment, and then be cognizant of affordability at all levels of competition, both at the highest levels and the development, so that players had access to tournaments that could help them grow, utilizing the girls only format. Besides this, there's so many topics, there's so many tangents that I could go off of as we get into these different things. So we do have some other webinars, some that we've done before, and we're going to be having one in a couple weeks on the 24th. It's going to focus specifically on national ranking profile and a deeper dive on what the rankings mean, how you get points, all the things that go into that. So I'm going to try to gloss over that today, but if that's of your interest, please join us in a couple weeks and you can learn more about the ins and outs of rankings and tournament strength and things along those lines. But we did do a pathway, PKB pathway, and understanding classification. So if you're understanding how to move through that pathway, we'll talk briefly about it today, but there's a whole webinar to understand the moving through that. We did one about competitive girls golf as a whole, which Robert Linville and Brandy Jackson joined in on, which was really insightful. And then Brandy has done a couple different ones. Two I selected here: parents' role in the recruiting process and social media in the recruiting process. Two real helpful webinars there that kind of go into that. If you've got a player that's moving into the recruiting window, those are really helpful in just getting some better understanding and some perspective about those different topics. So take a look at those. Webinars.pkbgt.org will take you directly to our YouTube channel, where we post all of these webinars, including this one, once we complete it. So check that out if you're looking for some more information or a deeper dive on any of these topics. So let's jump right into, we're going to start with understanding PKB Priority Based Entry. So first off, why does it exist? So Priority Based Entry for the PKB is about creating a registration method for our highest level tournaments to guarantee the best strength of field for our most competitive players. So it is a way to ensure that our players that are competing are playing at the appropriate level, competing to win at that level, not just competing to play. So it's not a first come, first serve event. This is creating a vetting process to ensure that each division has the top players possible for that tournament. So we select which tournaments based on, what the purpose of a said tournament is. So when we use the priority-based entry system, the purpose of that tournament is to identify the top players at that particular level in the PKB pathway progression. So that's a very important part. It's allowing those players the chance to show that they are elite within their group, and it gives them the ability from a recruitment process and building their resume to have those really strong strength of field events to show where they stand amongst their peers. So it's very important, and why we use this priority entry system, not just at our highest level, at the Bell National level, but we do use it at the other levels, because we want to ensure that all players at all steps along that junior developmental process are maximizing value at our highest level. So at those championship level events, we want to make sure if you're going to come and make that 2, 3, 4 day investment to be at these bigger national level tournaments, that you're getting the best bang for your buck as far as having the best field to compete against and the most value that you can get out of that tournament. Like I mentioned, we use it at multiple parts of the pathway progression. So for PKB, that starts down at our developmental discovery division and then moves through. So we have our futures prep bell progression. We use what we call classification. So that starts with classification 4 with our discovery players, classification 3 for our futures players, classification 2 for our futures moving into prep players, and classification 1, our highest level for prep moving into bell players. So it's this movement, that pathway that players are going to be moving through. Priority-based entry is going to be used at the highest level of each of these stops in the pathway. Tournaments at those are going to have that priority base tied to it, so that within each rung in the pathway, there's those different tiers of events. We're able to identify the top players in each tier at any given time. So looking at it from kind of the chart version here is just showing you that progression from class 1 to class 4 and why they exist. The PKB has both our national program and our regional program. Our regionals are more developmental programs. So these are players coming into tournament golf and working through the progression, maybe not traveling nationally for tournaments, still developmental. So you've got the 3 steps in that process, picking up yardage each step as you go. And then at our national program, this is for our highest level competitors at all stages in the classification. You have that 5,400 yards all the way to 6,000 plus. So this is where at the national level where you're going to see priority-based entry be inserted. For our class 1 players, you're seeing at pretty much every event for Bell National. And then within prep and futures national, you're seeing it at our championship level and maybe select other classic events that we'll use along the way. Kind of a snapshot at class 1, kind of showing why we use priority-based entry at almost all of our Bell National events. So class 1 makes up about 28% of the membership currently. These are players at all ages of the pipeline. What makes PKB different is we use a yardage and skill-based progression, not age. So you do not have to either go into the deep end if you're a player that came to the sport a little later and have not developed as fast as girls that have been playing since they were 8 in U.S. kids golf. Or if you're a very high performing middle school player, then you're able to move up that progression quicker if you're prepared and ready for it. So that's what really makes the PKB unique. So at the Class 1 level, again, the highest level of competing, you're seeing it's about 93% high school age players, and about 7% are your middle school high elite performers. These players are typically having a scoring differential under 7. From an average, the average Class 1 player is ranked inside the top 1,000 on the national ranking systems and inside under the top 200 in the PKB Performance Index. So just to kind of put that in perspective for where your daughter may lie, of where that level of player. Why that's important is priority-based entry. These tournaments, if you're not in the average or below the average, there's a lot of times you're not getting into these tournaments because there's that many players that have that ranking profile. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through. One piece I'll go to, I have a couple trust the process slides, and we've been doing this now 19 years. So we have a lot of data. We've learned a lot through this process. And moving through the process, allowing your daughter to work through the process as it's designed really can benefit her in the end. And here's a great example. Amanda Sambach, she's the 22nd ranked amateur in the world. She was an all-conference ACC champion. She just graduated from the University of Virginia. She played each of the levels in her development. So as a 12-year-old, she played futures. As a 13-year-old, or in her 13-year-old year, she played prep. And then as her 14-year-old year, she won the bell. So sticking with the process, going through the pathway, excelling along the way can build a foundation to build the strongest player possible. I know we get caught sometimes of wanting to be able to kind of push ahead, and we're worried about our kid may be falling behind. Those are kind of false flags. There's a process. You're gonna the rankings and things, you're gonna earn those by performance. So the focus has really got to come back to, if you're not where you want to be at that given moment, or you're not getting into the tournament that you want to get into, or you're not getting the classification adjustment that you've asked for, then we got to look at, we're looking at why and what do I need to do on the course or on the range, on the putting green a lot of times to improve for the scores to ultimately reflect what you're feeling is what is either could be you feel is deserving or you're hoping is attainable. So that's when we kind of talk about why we're playing, and we'll talk a little bit about that in schedule. So into the kind of the nuts and bolts of priority-based entry. So again, we use it for almost all Bell National events. So if you're a Class 1 player and looking to play at the Bell National level, priority-based entry is going to be used at almost every event we have. We also use it for championships in our prep preview and our futures national tournament levels for the championships events. And when you're on the site, you're going to see this image. It'll say priority-based entry. All right, sorry about that. I had a little dropout there, so that was fun. So I'm back. Okay. When you're on the website, you will see this icon, the priority-based entry icon will be at the top of every tournament page in which we are using the priority-based entry system. When you're on our schedules, if you're on the pkbgt.org site, you will see it'll be listed. There's a black line below the icon. That black line is going to signify that that tournament is a priority-based entry field. So in this case, you can see our 17th Invitational coming up in November is a priority entry event for the Bell National Field. If you skip down to, I'm going to use Colonial Girls Classic as our example through this presentation. It is a priority event, a priority entry event for our Bell National Field. But you see there's no line for the Futures National, so that's a first come, first serve event for the Futures National. Whereas if you look up to this event right above it, the Regional Tournament of Champions event is priority based entry for both fields, for both our Prep Preview and our Futures National. So that's how you can kind of see whether we're using the priority of entry for that particular field. When you're in the ShotStat registration portal, it's going to be signified by that P, that circle red P icon. That'll be listed by the tournament's name. So you'll know that that tournament has a division or all divisions in which are have the priority-based entry system. Quick question about the S. If you see the S, that means it's a special event. It means it's a tournament that's not within our order of merit system, but it's a ranked tournament through the PKB Performance Index, but it's a partner special event. That's what the S signifies. So, biggest question we get asked, how is my priority determined? So the PKB has a program that we use that looks at the three national ranking systems. So two of them are on a points score-based system, the PKB Performance Index and the National Junior Golf Scoreboard. These systems are using scoring differential, so the difference of your score versus the course rating on that given day, plus some strength of field calculations. There's win bonuses involved. So it's looking at how you play versus the course and who you play against is what those systems are using a mathematical calculation of. And then we also use the Tugger system, which is the Universal Golf Rankings. Tugger is a head-to-head algorithmic-based relative strokes ranking system. So what it is doing is it is comparing every golfer on a head-to-head basis. So it's looking at every golfer you've beat and every golfer you've lost to on any specific round you have played at any tournament within their system. And it looks at how many shots you lost by. So it takes out a lot of the external elements like weather and course conditions and any other piece that's in play, because every player who's there on that given day plays under the same circumstance. So it's all about how many shots did you beat a particular player to or lose to a particular player to on any given day. And it uses AI generated algorithm to be able to make those comparisons player to player. And it ultimately ranks every player in junior girls golf based on all of those head-to-head calculations. It's a program that started when the Live Golf started, and they didn't have them in the world rankings, and they wanted to know where those players would be in the world rankings if they did. So they created an algorithm to do it, and then started to apply that to the junior space. So in all, we are able to look at a full wide range of analysis of players' skill levels. So there's not, it kind of helps by having multiple ways to look at a player, 3 different systems judging that player. We can remove some of the biases that each system may have or any anomalies that each system may have. We can kind of get a real wide ranging view of these players. It's also, we get a lot of players that come to PKB that haven't played with us before. So they may not have a performance index yet because they haven't played in our program. So we're able to look at their national junior golf scoreboarding and Tugger rankings to be able to evaluate them fairly within the system, because we don't know them yet within our system. So it's able to using these 3 systems in conjunction is what gives us a very good view of who are how to rank these players on who gets that, this priority. So the points-based systems, I touched on it there a second. So there's kind of 4 big things. So this would be the PKB Performance Index and the Junior Golf Scoreboard ranking. So when you're trying to wonder what you're doing with rankings, so what did you score? So again, scores, that's going to be 2/3 of your ranking almost on all systems. It's the major driver of those systems. And then it's looking at where did you finish, how strong was the field, and did you win? Those are things that it's going to also factor into your ranking. Like I mentioned, in 2 weeks, on the 24th of September, we're going to be doing a webinar solely on this. So we're going to take a much deeper dive on how individual rankings are formed, as well as how tournaments are judged. So if you want to join us for that, come back for that on the 24th. So when we're going to register for a priority-based entry event, you're going to see that certain players are going to have a direct entry option. So you may look at the tournament and go, how did that player already get in the tournament? I thought this was a priority entry. I had to wait to see. Well, we do have a direct entry criteria set for all of these priority events so that players who already meet a certain ranking threshold are going to be able to go ahead and register. So for this event, again, the Colonial Classic, this is a Bell National direct entry event. So players who are in the top 250 on PKB Performance Index and the top 1750 Junior Golf Scoreboard can automatically register. If you do not meet those two criteria and you're a Class 1 player, then you're going to be put on a wait list. So when you're looking at an event, again, there's in the information section of any tournament page that the PKB has that has priority-based entry, it's going to tell you the specifics of what the direct entry metric is and any other details about. So again, for this tournament, where we have 30 players that are going to ultimately get into the Bell National field, and players that are top 250 or top 1750 can automatically register and claim one of those 30 spots. Again, if there were to be more than 30 players to register that are direct entry, then that would be first come, first serve. So you do still want to go ahead and register. It's not a guarantee that you can wait till the last day and still get in. But as long as there's spots left in the field, if you meet those metrics, you can automatically go and register and be in the tournament. So if you're not pre-exempt, so if you do not meet that standard, then it is going to put you on a wait list. Each of the classifications, so class 1, 2, or 3, will have their own wait list there. So for this event, being that it's a Bell National priority-based entry event, if you have class 1 status and do not meet those metrics, then you're going to be put on the class 1 wait list like we have here. One of the things with the PKB system is if you are not guaranteed a spot in the field, it will not charge you. So if you get charged an entry fee, that means you are guaranteed a spot in the tournament. Even if you're on a wait list, that just means you may get pushed between one of the two divisions. If you're not guaranteed a spot, it will not charge you. So you'll sit on the class 1 waiting list until the priority entry deadline happens. You'll also notice in this tournament that a player has moved inside the metric. So they were on the class 1 waiting list, but then their ranking improved after they got on the registration. So they will get bumped into the field automatically, and they'll be sent an invitation to be able to come into the field. So you will see that movement. So again, there's no penalty. You don't have to wait. You can, if you get onto the wait list and then you meet the metric, you're going to be invited in. So once we get to the priority-based entry deadline, now this will be posted again on every priority-based entry event on the ShotStat page. Down in the schedule, it will list the date. It'll also be the date that is when it says entries closed by. It is typically 32 days prior to the start of the tournament. So it's going to be 4.5 weeks. It's going to be Monday at midnight, 4.5 weeks prior to the start of the tournament. So it's going to give you month notice whether you're in the tournament or not, and which division you have qualified for at that time. So that's when that process will work. So when you're looking for future tournaments, you need to register and get on those waiting lists a month, more than a month prior. If you wait till 2 or 3 weeks before those tournaments, they're already going to probably be filled and they'll be full. So your only option at that point will be getting on a wait list if people withdraw. So if you want to be considered for a priority-based entry process, you need to get on those tournaments at least more than a month before. So when you are doing these tournaments, it's going to be in a waterfall system that is used to set the order for a tournament. So first thing we will do is we will fill the Bell National Field to its limit. So in the Colonial Classic, there's 30 players. So we will go onto the Class 1 wait list and add however many players from that goes to make the Bell National Field of 30 with the exempt players that were already registered. Once we have hit a full field, so once we get to that 30 in this instance, then all the rest of the Class 1 players would, if there was a prep preview field in that tournament, they would then be considered for that field, or in the Colonial Classic instance, they would go on a wait, they would stay on that wait list should we have players withdraw from the 30 players that have qualified for the Bell National Field. So that's where you would sit in a waitlisting system. When you are selected into a field, the first thing you're going to notice is your status is going to change from Class 1 waitlist to being in the Bell National Field. So you'll show up in the Bell National Field, and you will see you'll still be listed as waitlisted, but you'll now be listed as a Bell National player for that tournament. You will receive an email that will tell you that you have been accepted, and you'll have typically 24 to 48 hours to go online and pay. Because in this instance, you have not paid yet because you just got onto the wait list. So that'll be your opportunity to say, I want to play. Now, if you're on a wait list, get invited, and you can't play, your things have changed, you've got travel, whatever the other reasons may be, then you just email us back and say, I decline the spot. And then we move on to the next player on the list. I cannot stress enough how important it is to please decline if you know you can't play. Otherwise, we're holding a spot for your player, and it's keeping some other player out of that field because we think you're coming. Because you had asked to play, and we're assuming if you asked to play, that means you want to play. So if your things change, if you ultimately don't want to accept, please write us back. It helps us be so much more efficient and gives another player an opportunity to be able to take that spot. It is the player's responsibility to check their email. So make sure it's not in the spam folder. When you see the priority-based entry deadline hits, that next day, the day after, go to the tournament page, see if your status has changed, if you're in a different field. If you see your status has changed, if you're listed in the Bell National Field, but you haven't received an email, it's probably in cyberspace or in your spam folder, but you've been accepted. So when you go to your ShotStat account, you're going to see your name will be active on that tournament page, so you can click it to register. Key thing to remember with all priority-based entry, when you're claiming spots, you have to be logged in to the ShotStat system. That is the only way that it knows who you are. If you're not logged in, it thinks you're a general user. General users are not allowed to register for priority entry events, so it's not going to show anybody available to register. It's going to say event closed. So make sure you're logged in. When you're logged in, you're going to see your daughter's name. That's going to allow you to go to checkout to claim that spot. And again, if you're going to not claim the spot, please email us back so we know to move on to the next player. Following the completion of the field, so once we get a full field, the tournament will stay open until the closing deadline. The closing deadline for all PKB national level events is 12 days prior. For championship events, it's typically 19 days prior. So again, 2 Mondays prior to the tournament or 3 Mondays prior to the tournament. So players can get onto the waiting list during that window, but obviously the tournament would already be full. If the tournament did not fill as the priority-based entry deadline, then it's going to revert to a first come first serve. So the tournament will open up, and we will accept entries until we fill the field up until the close date. If you accept a spot in a lower division, so if you're a Class 1 player and do not initially get into the Bell National Field but are offered a spot in the prep preview field and you take it, that does not impact in any way whether you'll be promoted or not. So you can claim the prep preview spot to guarantee that you can compete in the tournament. And then should your priority be reached, then you would have the opportunity to move up into the Bell field from the prep preview list. So there is no preference given to a player in the prep preview field or on the Class 1 wait list as far as the priority status of a given player. And then when we get to the official close date of a tournament, that is the point when all wait lists are shut off and they become fixed. And we will post on the tournament page a fixed order in which we will select what order we will add players to any particular division based on the priority entry formula. So at that moment, when the event closes, that's when you're going to know when your exact place on the priority list would happen at the close date. All right, so that kind of gave you an overview of how and why about the priority-based entry system. So now we're going to talk about how the tournament systems looked and how do you maximize your schedule. So knowing that you have these priority events, you have events outside the PKB, you have all these different options. How do I kind of try to create maximization for my daughter in this process? So let's start with just a brief overview of how the U.S. golf landscape is set up for girls golf in tournaments. And I start with this because I want you to think about why we're playing tournament golf. Like, what are you, when you're building this schedule for your daughter, and you sit down with the daughter and you're talking about what are my goals? Why are we playing tournaments? What are we building towards? It should always be something we're building to. So I'm going to use the word progression. What are the progression that we're working towards so that we have a purpose to these tournaments that we're playing? You're looking at it the way I would want you to look at it is it's a balance. We have to maximize the resources that we have. Obviously, there's funding. We've got entry fees. We've got travel. You've got time away for the player. It's from school, for the parents from work. I have a daughter playing travel soccer. I understand what traveling and the cost and time commitment that goes into that. So it's about, how do I maximize the resources that I have as a family to give my daughter the most opportunity that she can get? You also are looking at it's a focus of advancement of skill. So understanding, it's not just, we get a lot about, my daughter hits it a long way, so she's ready to play the best tournaments in the country. And it's like, golf is not judged by that. That's a piece of the puzzle, and it's a very attractive piece for college recruiting. But at the end of the day, we got to get the ball in the hole. So we're looking at how do we shoot lower scores? How do we figure out what's holding us back? So if we do drive the ball 250 yards, but we're still shooting 85, why? And then we're attacking why. Where's the breakdown? Is it a course management issue? Is it a putting issue? Is it struggling to compete? The player has, mental game struggles. Well, those are things that can be solved along the progression. It can be worked on in the progression. It doesn't mean we've got to throw that player in the deep end of the pond and hope she doesn't sink. We're looking for the right tournament opportunity for that player to take this skill that they have and develop others around it to become a high-level player. So we've got maximizing our resources. We've got how do we maximize the environment for developing our skills? And then how do we create the developmental opportunity? So learning to win. So being in a tournament, not just playing in a field, but being in a tournament where there's expectation. Do we have a chance to win when we go to sleep the night before the final round? That's a learned skill. Some players have it, some players panic. They've got to learn how to deal with that feeling, that expectation, that extra pressure that they are putting on themselves. And a lot of times the parents are projecting onto them. They've got to learn how to deal with those things. How do you develop your national ranking profile? How do you develop your amateur ranking profile if you're a junior, senior in high school and preparing to go to college and starting to look at amateur events? How can you get a head start on your amateur ranking when you're still a junior golfer, which will help you down the road? And then there's a big piece about how do you qualify for events? A lot of events like I said, there's a progression. So how does this event that I'm playing in today help me get into the event I want to get in tomorrow? And that's a big thing we want to look at. I'm going to go into that a little bit more here. So one thing we really believe is you got to have some success along the way. Why else would you play a sport if you're not going to enjoy it and have some reward for all the hard work that goes into it? Golf in particular, it is a lonely sport to practice. You're not in a team. You're not playing with other people very often. It's you grinding away on a driving range or on a putting green. So we need to make sure that we're giving players opportunities to have success, to feel fulfillment, and to see the fruits of their labor, so that they stay, the motivation is there and the confidence is there. Confidence is a big piece of that. So we want to make sure that we're developing that as well. And that's what that progression is allowing, is that players are getting the chance to play at a level where they can be competitive. So it's not just, oh, I have to get her in the very best tournament, or you know, where she's, you know, probably going to finish in the bottom of the field. Well, you know, the prep preview division, which we created now about 10 years ago, was created because we learned that there was too big of a gap between Futures and Bell. We needed to have a transitional division. And we're so excited now to see how much it has grown out, because it has created a great kind of pathway and a transition for players as they move to that longer 6,000 yard collegiate preparatory level. So when you're looking at ranking profiles, I mentioned this, the amateur rankings, you've got the world amateur ranking, world amateur golf rankings, that's WAGR is what you're going to hear people talk about. And then in national organizations, so we already mentioned the three that we use in our priority based entry. And then you've got the AJGA and their Rolex rankings and priority based entry stars, which create access to their national level tournaments. So these are things that you're going to get into. Again, we have a webinar about this. We'll get into this next in a couple of weeks. Within the PKB, there's kind of two separate ways that we're judging players. So our performance index, this is a ranking of every single player that plays the PKB, no matter which division you play in. So it's comparing all those players. It's weighing the yardage you played, the difficulty of the course, which is the course rating, and the strength of the field. So those are what performance index is weighting to judge you against every other girl within the PKB platform. We also have our order of merit standings. Now these look at each individual series, for example, the Bell National Series or the Prep Preview Series, or regionally at the Futures North Carolina or something like that. So this is looking at a snapshot within that series or any particular series, who's the top player in that series. It takes your top 5 performances throughout the season and adds up the points earned from those events to judge who is the leader within those. So you've got two different ways that we're kind of looking at recognizing excellence along the different steps. When you're looking at the U.S. landscape for tournaments, the biggest challenge for parents is there is no sanctioning body, which means there's no structure, progression, or anybody to police tournaments in any meaningful way. So there is a bunch of different organizations, more pop up every year and disappear, that can run tournaments. So there's no just simple blueprint that exists to say, start at position A, and then we'll get you to position Z. That's really why the PKB was formed, because we were so frustrated with how girls interacted with the tournament space. So we wanted to try to create a pathway. So girls luckily have a little more structure, especially those on the eastern part of the country where the PKB's grown out of, where there's a much more robust program. But that is the big challenge that you all have in trying to put together a schedule, because every organization has different meanings. Some of them are built around development. Some of them are built around financial. So they're trying to make money. There's a lot of for-profit tours that are out there. There's a lot of built around ego. You see the word elite get used a lot. Everyone's using it as a marketing term. Opportunity, you have groups like ours that are in the nonprofit space that created this to try to create more opportunity. So you have a lot of different factors that are motivating all these different organizations that are running these tournaments. So when you look at it, you have these national organizations, the USGA and the PGA, that run some of the biggest nationwide tournaments, US Girls, US Women's AM, from the USGA, the PGA Junior Girls. These are some of the top 10 events you can play in a year. National organizations like ourselves, the AJGA, The LPGA has now gotten in with the LPGA Girls Golf Championships, and then the Nota Begay group. We do the PKB Nota Begay Championship, which is on the Golf Channel every November. So you do have some of these national organizations. We're going to talk about the progressions for those. Then you have independent events. So, the Dustin Johnson, the Sage Valley, the Dye, the Kathy Whitworth, the Scott Robertson. These are some historical singular events, a lot of times put on by local organizations or local clubs that are really high-level tournaments that you can get into. And then your state association or your PGA section probably has a junior tour or developmental. They said that they're going to run their state championships to state girls. So those are going to be good for good tournaments to look after. So you have all these different tournaments that are active. So how do you understand, how do you move through these different progressions? So at the national level, the USGA girls, you have to qualify in your region for those. So now you can win your state girls championship, or if you're in the Carolinas, you can also win Carolina girls. They may offer 1 or 2 spots. And then to get into your state associations, there's a handicap requirement. So you just have to have a handicap and you can get into the qualification at your state level. For the PGA section, it's the same way. Every PGA section has a girls championship. That's what sends players to the national event. For your AJGA, their invitationals, which are their highest level tournaments, you are playing in their AJGA Opens or their Junior All-Stars to try to get, or outside tournaments as well, can get you fully exempt status with the AJGA. If you can get fully exempt status, then that opens the door to be able to get into their invitationals. At their Opens and All-Star levels, that's where they have their performance-based, their performance entry stars, as they call them. So stars are accrued whether you're playing AJ events or outside events. For example, the PKB is the largest. We have the most stars available for girls of any other organization in the country. I have 300 or 400, I believe, that you can get through our program. Again, I'll cover some of that more in a couple of weeks. But that's a pathway that you can look at. And then, like I mentioned, your state girls opens. Some states you can just sign up and play in them. Some you have to qualify. Most of them do have a handicap requirement at the state level. Inside the PKB, we have a lot of progressions as well. So our big invitationals, you're going to play your way in, or you're going to have your national ranking profile may be able to get you in. Tournament of Champions events are earned entry based on how you play. Our Tour Championship is earned entry off of order of merit. The Linville Cup is our earned entry event at our regional developmental level. And then the LPGA and the Nota Begay both have qualification process. So I'm going to hit on these just real quick so you can kind of see the different progressions for these big ones. So first, our 2 largest events are the PKB Invitational and the Spring Invitational, the 2 bells. Those are the 2 highest ranked PKB events that we currently run. There's a couple automatic ways. So the top 25 bell order of merit finishers from the previous year are automatically getting in. You win a PKB championship level event at the Bell National level, you're automatically in. If you're in the top 50 in the PKB Performance Index as of certain dates, you're going to get in. And then we have a couple qualifiers. So the first 4 events of the 25-26 season, the top 2 bell finishers are going to get in. And then we use an at-large system for players that may be outside the PKB system, maybe further away that can't play in the qualifiers. That'll bring in high-level at-large players to complete our field. These events are reduced fields. So the Invitational in the fall has 66 players, and the Spring Invitational has 51. All at the Bell National level, all elite high-level tournaments for those. Our Tournament of Champions event is our 4th best tournament that we run by ranking. And this is you play your way in. There is no at-large system. So you win a tournament at the national level. If you want to get into the National Tournament of Champions, you finish in the top. It's usually the top 3, sometimes top 5 at a championship or invitational. And then if you were the runner-up, you get conditional status. So if we do not fill the field with our exempt players, then we use our conditional. For the Regional Tournament Champion events, which is held every year at Palmetto Dunes down in Hilton Head, you have to win a regional series event at any level, Prep Futures Discovery, that gets you into the tournament. And again, we have conditional status for the runner-up. So there's only one way in. So there's no, hey, I'm a good player, I'm a high-ranked player. If you want to qualify for these high-ranked tournaments, you have to go win a PKB event to get in. For Tour Championship, which is held every August at Pine Needles, this is the top players from the Order of Merit that will ultimately qualify. So our program is going to start here in the fall, goes all the way to next summer. We take the top 30 Bell players and the top 27 Prep and Futures players off of the Order of Merit list to qualify for the Tour Championship. For the Linville Cup, again, our regional players, this is again off of Order of Merit. So the top Futures National Order of Merit finisher, as well as the top Prep, Futures, and Discovery Regional Order of Merit finishers are going to get invited to represent their regions. You can see on this chart we have 6 regions that compete at the Linville Cup for this year. We'll be announcing those about a month when the regional series ends up. So we're excited to be able to announce our 2026 Linville Cup participants here soon. And then our championship progression. So the LPGA Girls Championship, a real exciting new event. This will be the 3rd one being played next year. We will be returning to Pine Needles for a 3rd year, so we're excited about that. Also have a big announcement coming for that here in the fall, so stay tuned for that, but you're definitely going to want to qualify for this event. You can qualify through, we have PKB Tradition, PKB Showcases, we have PKB Qualifiers, so championship level PKB events will send players. And that gets you to the championship event. So there's no at-large pieces to this. You have to earn your way into the LPGA Championship. Same for the Nota Begay Championship. It has a 3-level progression. So it starts with local qualification, or they do have an exemption if you have a high enough national ranking profile. That gets you to a regional final. There are 22 this year, regional finals across the country that you can play in, and the winners of those at each of the 4, this is done in age divisions. There's 4 different age divisions. At each of those regional finals, at minimum 1 player in each age division will qualify for the national championship. That national championship's the first weekend in November this year, down at Coshada Resort in Louisiana, and again will be on the Golf Channel at the first of right after Thanksgiving. So awesome event if you haven't done it. Really unique experience. And again, this progression gives you a way to qualify through. One note is like all the PKB regional events are considered local qualifiers. So if you're playing at the regional level of PKB, that can earn you into regional finals if you're not already exempt by ranking. So last, we'll look at how you kind of navigate the PKB schedule to use that to kind of meet these goals. So I put this called the PKB value proposition is like, why is PKB valuable to your player? The biggest things we have in our advantage is it's girls only focus. So every decision we make, from the pins to the yardage to the purple signage, everything is about making the girls feel comfortable and trying to challenge the girls in an environment that is 100% focused on their needs. We've done this now for 19 years. This is our 20th season upcoming. So we have a long history here in understanding what the girls needs and giving them exposure to the collegiate game. Now over 2,000 girls have come through the PKB program and have gone on to play a college golf team. So ranking development's a big part of it. Again, that's why we're doing a whole webinar on it, is making sure you understand and how that affects your recruiting process and how to understand what you need to care about and what not to worry about. And then, like I said, the girls only system and our yardage-based progression versus using age allows players to develop at their own pace in a year-round environment. For developing players, the PKB schedule structure kind of looks like this. So the fall is starting to wind down for developing players because high school golf is being played predominantly. Some of the southern states play spring girls golf, but most of the country plays fall girls golf. So you're probably playing on your high school teams. You're getting a lot of play during that window. So it's a little bit softer for our developing players. Regional Tournament Champions is an earned entry, great national level event, kind of step into the deeper end and start to play. And then as we get to the winter, There's some 2-day Futures National events, which start to give you nationally ranked tournaments to start working to develop a national profile as you're starting to dip your toes into that. And of course, our Linville Cup, which is our unique team events, our most popular event we run for players, is a really cool leadership immersion team competition. And then as we get to the spring, again, you have a lot of nationally ranked. Every weekend, there's going to be nationally ranked Futures National tournaments. The LPGA USGA Championship Showcase qualifiers start up. So these are ways that you can qualify for the LPGA Girls Championship in the Futures Division. And then we start our regional program up. So this is where all those 1 and 2 day tournaments for our developing players are happening every 2-3 weeks. And then in the summer, peak regional program, you're going to have a lot of regional tournaments going on. We have those big championship events with Futures National Tour Championship. We have the LPGA Girls in the Futures Division. We also have a Discovery Division for that. So our 9-hole players have a place to advance. And that's also the period of time for our younger players, our 10 and 11-year-olds, and our 12 to 14-year-old or 12 and 13-year-olds. The Nota Begay regionals for those age divisions happen as well. So our younger players, this is a place where you can go play and try to qualify for these bigger national events. For our national players, the system's a little different. Fall, winter is peak PKB into the early spring. This is our biggest invitationals, our national tournament of champions. The premier national events are through the winter. So from December to March are our highest rated 36-hole weekend events that we run. You're going to see in there. Priority based entry through that whole window. We sell out pretty much every tournament in that window. So be prepared for that. Make sure you register early. Then in the spring, we have our Spring Bell Invitational, which kicks off the spring. We have 2 more 54-hole championships. Pretty much every weekend, at least 1, if not 2, 36-hole classic events. And then we're starting to qualify for the LPGA championships. We call them tradition qualifiers. Those are all over the country. So you're looking for a tradition qualifier near you to try to qualify for the LPGA event. And then in the summer, it's building toward those big national events. So the Tour Championship in August, the LPGA Championship in July. And then the Nota Begay regionals are pretty much all in the summer. So you're qualifying for November there in the summer. Just working through, we'll run about 130, 140 events total. So there's plenty of opportunities that run. Again, we're still very East Coast based. We are starting to work out into other areas. We're always looking for partners to work with to be able to bring more out. We are a nonprofit foundation, so how many tournaments we're able to run is based on how many dollars and giving and things that we do. So you'll probably be seeing some giving pledges and asks from us here as we get towards the end of the year. So if you know of a company or an individual that would love to support girls golf, please connect them to our foundation. We'd love to have that support. That's what helps us to continue to grow, to bring tournaments and these opportunities to new areas to help more girls. Strength of field analysis. Again, I'm going to take a much deeper dive into this in a couple of weeks, but what it's really kind of showing you is there's a lot of high-level play that's happening at all levels of these pathways. So when you're in these progressions, you're moving up through and you're getting strong level tournaments at each of the stops on the progression. And this is my last trust the process, and that's what I'm going to end with is here's a chart. This is the futures order of merit, the final futures order of merit from 2012. And when you're kind of looking back and you're starting to get stressed about, what if my daughter's falling behind or what it may be, just remember, and you can look at this chart. So the player who finished 3rd and finished 6th on this chart, they're currently playing on the LPGA Tour. Gina Kim's won 3 times on the Epson Tour this year. She'll be going back on tour next year. Amelia, who finished 5th in this list, is one of the top 10 amateurs in the world. She talks golf. She's works for NBC Golf. So just because you're not winning today doesn't mean you won't win tomorrow. It's all about developing. It's all about just continuing to compete. Obviously, these players were in the top part, so they were high-level performers. But just because you're not number one or your ratings, you're looking at a ranking and it's this and another player's that. It's just not the end game. This is a process. So You got to trust that your player is going to get there, and you're going to provide them the avenue to do that. And here at the PKB, our goal is to provide you the environment in which your daughter can ultimately thrive, so that she can come out, have a lot of girls to play with, have a community that's going to be empowering to her, to be able to, stay motivated in the practice and do. And one of the big pieces I'll put in there, I mean, a lot of this was talking about the PKB specific, so we can understand. And there's other tournaments outside the PKB platform that are valuable and positive for your daughter to compete. They're going to help build her national profile. So you're going to use all these tools in the toolbox to be able to get there. But what you're going to find is unique about the girls only environment in what the PKB provides is it's so empowering, and that the strength of field and the depth of field that we're able to provide by doing it girls only, where we don't have to have a small amount of girls because we've got to have 72 boys in the field. That really becomes the big advantage. So with that, I'm going to open this up to questions and answers. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. So if you'll throw them into the chat there, we'll answer a couple here before we cut it off for the evening. So if you have a question, want to throw it out there, just throw it in the chat. I'm going to look at it here. One question about understanding classification and their numbers. So there is actually a webinar. So if you go to that webinars.pkbgt.org, there's a webinar complete about the progression of the classifications. So what kind of ranking would you need to have to move to class 2 or to move to class 1? So that webinar would be a great place to start. And then if you have individual questions, do reach out. Please give me a call. I am happy to help. My next slide will have my contact information, so please feel free to reach out. But that webinar would be a great place to start to look at that. Are there any other questions that I can answer before we sign off for tonight? All right. Well, I will just a couple notes. So this has my contact information in there. Also want to note about Brandy Jackson. So through our Recruit PKB initiative, all our national members get a free 30-minute consultation with Brandy. It's a really, really useful tool, no matter at what part of the recruiting process you are in. So if you haven't started and you're unsure when to start, if you've started and just want someone to kind of talk through what you're thinking, or if you want to learn more specifically about different programs or things, Brandy is a great resource. We've been working together for over a decade now. She either played professionally or collegiately with most of the coaches who are coaching today. So she's just a great resource about how the system works and a lot about these programs. So please use that consultation. It's free and it's very valuable. Through the tour, we do have a couple financial assistant programs. So if your family or if you know another player that's on your team, your high school team or in your area that could use support, please tell them to reach out. We have a first tournament free program for our developmental regional players. We also have our financial aid packages, which get discounts on entry fees. There's yearly grants through our Inspire Dream Achieve grant program. So please, use these or let people know about these if you know of a player that could use them. We want to make sure that the financial burden is not what's holding players back from competing. And last, I'll remind you, we have our webinar coming up in 2 weeks where we're going to deep dive on the rankings. So I hope you'll join us for there if that's something you're interested in. And of course, this and all of our other webinars are at our YouTube channel at webinars.pkbgt.org. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for being a part of this webinar tonight and being a part of our Peggy Kirk Bell Girls Tour community. We love what we do in trying to grow girls golf, and we're so happy that your daughter is a part of it. And please let us know if we can help you on helping her journey. That's what we're here for. So thank you all so much for the night. We really appreciate it, and we'll see many of you in 2 weeks. Have a good night.